Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. OpTic Texas' roster is finally official, and Octane reveals his perspective on how he thinks this team is going to do. He's incredibly excited for the upside this team has, especially because of what he believes Kenny is going to bring to this roster. How is it going to work though behind the scenes from a leadership perspective with what Kenny intends to bring to this team, especially because a few years ago now, Kenny and Dashy did not have the greatest conclusion to their time together on OpTic Gaming Los Angeles. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. This I thought was pretty funny, right? I think Methods was saying about this on the breakdown as well, that these boys, I think with Kenny as well, came along at some point, went to some club or whatever, and there were guys in there that obviously recognized Scump and recognized Ziddy, and it was like, oh, please, don't leak anything, boys. We're just here for, for a good time. And as I think Method says in the replies, a tough night for the company card at Hex. So, yeah, I'm sure Scump, I had to make a decision. So Scump would never pay anything on his own time if he doesn't have to. That's just the way this guy operates. But yeah, I imagine the bill was getting racked up a fair bit. Did also want to mention I saw some beautiful clips coming out from Black Ops 3. We've seen so far this off-season Black Ops Card War. Even I think I saw Havoc was grinding Modern Warfare 2 ranked play, going from like 0 to like the top rank or whatever it is, Masters rank, in one stream, which I thought was absolutely insane. But fair play. But I know that a lot of guys now are going back to Black Ops 3. And just have a look at this. I know that Robstar gets on. If this doesn't just make you like tingle a little bit, then I don't know what does to it. So we look at this. So he hits the wall run, the wall bounce, and I mean, this is on Breach, of course. And look at this. The ledge slide off the wall bounce. Oh my god, it's just so pretty, man. What a game. And to be fair, I will say that towards the end of this game's life cycle, the movement got to... People could do this all the time, the best players, and the game kind of got ridiculous. Like, it's so satisfying, but to actually play, it did get a bit ridiculous, the movement. Like, I actually think that if there was a second year of Black Ops 3, they might have had to get rid of Afterburner, because if we played Black Ops 3 today, like, from a competitive perspective, it would just be absolutely insane. And I think that we were kind of feeling that right at the end of this game's life cycle, was that people were just doing this stuff all the time. And there's a skill gap in it for sure, but it did create an amount of randomness, I think, when, like, I don't necessarily think the developers intended the game to be played like this. As beautiful as it is, I think that if the game was played on a competitive level today, Afterburner might have to be outlawed. That's just my probably hot take. I love Afterburner and I love this game and I love the movements, but, I think it was getting a little bit ridiculous at some point, to be honest. But we also had Dashy here, who was playing some Chals last night on Black Ops 3 against TJ and Proloot, and Drazah was involved. And here we are on Infection, Search and Destroy, 1 versus 3, and he finds the final player who pops the Psychosis for some reason, and he gets the kill as well on Decimate to go up 5-1. So, yeah, beautiful. What a game. We also have this from FaZe Tupac, seemingly confirming that he's re-signed his deal with FaZe going forward. So he's looked at the record of the Huntsman team that he was with back in Modern Warfare, then the Cold War FaZe team, Vanguard FaZe team. Interesting that Vanguard FaZe team were only 38 and 34 in there. I'm guessing this is Search and Destroy, right? So, I mean, yeah, he says most total wins. But, yeah, so I guess the Search and Destroy, I think it is true, right? In Vanguard, the Search and Destroy for FaZe wasn't so good. Last year, it was great, though, 49 and 21, and, yeah, it's set the all-time record for Search and Destroy. So Tupac, their Search and Destroy guy, basically, and excited to see what Year 5 in the CDL will bring. Sign a new contract, either that's at FaZe or that's elsewhere, but you're gonna think it's probably at FaZe, all things considered. Let's talk about the OpTic situation then. Pred officially joins yesterday. What I'm really interested though is how Kenny is going to work out with this team. How's that dynamic going to play out? How's Kenny going to work from a leadership perspective? Has he learned enough from Octane in the previous couple of years to now hit his stride being the in-game leader, really, is what he's going to do for this roster? Kenny has great comms. I think that's been clear for quite some time. And Octane in this clip is giving Kenny a lot of gas for what he believes he's going to do for this roster. Kenny also explained to on the breakdown last night his perspective on the whole saga, and says that he's learned a lot from Octane in recent years, being calm under pressure and playing with a guy like Octane, especially when Kenny also said his plan for this offseason was going to be stay on Thieves and team up with some younger guys. That was the plan for Thieves, and Kenny was pretty down to do it. He was down to be the leader, the IGL, and help these younger guys out. Now he can use that skill set he's been developing on OpTic, a team that really needs that type of skill set. And Octane reckons that, yeah, Pred's a good pickup, Shotzzy's good, Dashy's good, but Kenny, if he does what Octane believes he can do, will be the difference maker in the X Factor to making this team a championship contender, because, as Kenny says in this clip, it's the teamwork that always separates the good teams from the great.
Teamwork is like what basically differentiates the top teams from the bottom teams, and I look to bring that to the team for sure.
Hell yeah, that's good. Let me touch on Endgame real quick too.
Yeah.
So from the outside looking in, like my assumption is that you're going to be like IGLing or like taking over sort of the comms. Maybe not like a. I think the term IGL in COD's a weird one, but
yeah.
I do think when it comes to the communication, you'll be like leading the way.
Yeah, I mean,
and you play with Octane too. So like, are there things that, and Sam has great communication, obviously.
Right.
Like, has playing with him, do you think you'll take some things that he's implemented and then bring that over here?
Yeah, I think playing with Sam for so long and like honestly like scoping out everything he's done for our team last year, like the past 2 years, like I've learned a lot just playing with him again. And also for me, like I feel like I'm a pretty smart Call of Duty player. So I feel like the only thing I need to work on is like in these like, I guess, dire situations, like more high pressure situations, like to calm myself and like calm the team down. I feel like that's something I learned from Sam, like as we've been teaming the past 2 years. Like in those moments, he's so calm, and like it makes it easier because you're just like, when you're speaking to somebody in like a calm manner, it kind of just slows the game down, and sometimes a team needs to slow down. So I feel like that's something I definitely want to tap into this year, because I didn't do it that much last year on our team, but I did have moments where I did do it. And I think the IGO, because me, I want to be the like a pretty vocal person in the game, so I feel like the IGO role fits me pretty well.
I'm telling you, Chad, like Ken is their best
when it
pickup.
comes to like mini-map reading.
Obviously, AG's nuts,
I feel
but
like for me, that's what makes it
culture, and this team is
as well,
going to succeed because of Ken. I guarantee you.
Yeah, so in that aspect.
Like AG was big for
All right, Predator.
kills and
Next
skill
one up for
and
you, kid.
all the obvious stuff.
Well,
but this
speaking
team,
of
chat,
how do you think
will
how do you
succeed
think you two are going to
based
mesh
on
as
how
a sub
Ken
duo?
does.
Obviously, your play
Like
styles are.
you kind of already like mentioned it a little
I would
bit,
say
but like
very different. He's more
right down a little bit.
fast,
Like
in your face,
he mentioned it with like the
all
team
time,
culture
so are
thing
you,
and like
but
leading
I
and
feel
stuff.
you
Like
play
if he can get everyone on this team, because obviously they have all the
like
kills in the world, bro. They have
heavy
Shotzzy,
sub.
Pred, and Dashy. Like they have all the kills in the world. If Ken can lead them the way that I know that he can, this team is gonna be insane. Like this, I'm like like no glaze. I am genuinely excited to like watch this team play, because I think that their ceiling is nuts.
So you can say, oh, of course Octane's going to say this, right, because Kenny's his boy and they're been together on 100 Thieves for a long time, but I don't think he would say this without good reason. I think if you listen to the behind the scenes stuff and the comms of those teams over the last couple of years, yes, Octane gets a lot of credit, but I think, well, Kenny's going to be in a great position to do something similar for this OpTic team. The question that I have, and it was one that was raised a bit last night during the breakdown where Pred made some comments about, well, you know, the team has an incredible ceiling, it's just about whether we actually put in the work and have the best teamwork. And of course, they didn't talk about, you know, Shotzzy or Dashy last night. It was all about the new recruits. But the last time Kenny and Dashy teamed, it didn't end particularly well. They teamed on OpTic Gaming Los Angeles back in the Modern Warfare 2019 season, and actually Kenny didn't want to team with Dashy initially. So, well, I'll go into the saga if you guys don't remember this from back in the day, and there were lots of rather spicy comments actually being made at the time that I made some rather spicy videos on back in, I think, late 2020. They're now teaming up again, and they remained friends outside of the game after this drama. So I'm sure they think they can figure it out again, and I think that Dashy's changed as a player over the last 3 years, but he will have needed to, right? Because Kenny isn't going to take any BS, is the way I look at this. And as I mentioned at the end of this morning's video, right, like Dashy is the man that I'm really looking at on this team now, because he's been on so many iterations of OpTic, and the question's always been there, why can't his team succeed? Why don't they win more and this type of stuff? And I think at times that discussion has been overblown somewhat. But if this team doesn't work, I think that it's probably going to be Dashy on the chopping block this time rather than the other guys, because maybe there can only be so many chances. But this was the team they were on, right? OpTic Gaming Los Angeles, started the Modern Warfare season. It quickly fell apart because Dashy never wanted to be there in the first place. He wanted to go to Huntsman, but I think he signed the deal too early before he realized that OGLA wasn't going to be Huntsman, and then Scum and Hex went over there. And anyway, Dashy was never particularly keen on being on this roster. There was some drama behind the scenes, and Kenny did a big like 15-minute video at the time discussing this, and he said, I respect Bruce as a person. As a player though, I'm iffy about him. There were some issues behind the scenes. TJ and Brandon showed up late for scrims every single day. I always made time to make sure I was there on time for scrims. We wanted Brandon to be our star player. We gave him what he wanted, but the transition between the roles didn't work out. And he says that, look, Brandon never benched himself. We benched him because he wasn't being a good teammate. And yeah, so Kenny had some discussion on this at the time, and these were all the main points that he made during that AMA. It's why I like making these old videos, because I could go back to that old video from like 3 years ago, go to the description, look at the references that I put, and find all of this stuff from back in the day. But so as he says, Slasher and Kenny didn't want to team with Dashy at the start of the season, only did it because they wanted to team with TJ, and TJ and Brandon were a package deal, and then they were fine with him being the star, but he didn't give comms, he mumbled, he groaned, he was average at the main ER role. Kenny didn't, mess with him being hyped to be off a team and getting arrogant and all this stuff. So Kenny wasn't happy, right? He was like, look, I like Bruce, Dashy as a Brandon as a person, but as a player, Kenny and they just didn't get along. Dashy then actually responded to this in quite a good way and said that he has no problems with Kenny outside of the game. He was the realest one in the org, and did admit that he, owned up to his mistakes. It wasn't just him. The team shouldn't act like that, stuff like this. So there was a bit of back and forth, right, at the time between Kenny and between Dashy, and things didn't end on great terms, but now they're back team with each other. And it's been a long time. Time heals lots of wounds. And as I've said before, I do think that Dashy is a different player today than he was a couple of years ago, because definitely on that Modern Warfare team, I think that Dashy would go back and say that, he wasn't the player that he needed to be. And even Crimsix has said in recent times that in the Black Ops 4 season, when they had their friction, that I don't know if he said that Dashy, but I think that he implied it. And he said that, Dashy and TJ basically that they played with back in that Black Ops 4 year with Karma and Crim and Scump on the roster with TP as the head coach, have since come out to Crim and said, you know what, yeah, you were right, I needed to do this, needed to do that, needed to be a better player, needed to be a better teammate, and that was big friction that season. So, look, it's just always a thing in sports, right, where star players with incredible ability don't always have the best attitude to their teammates or to certain parts of the game, and as I say, I think Dashy's made progress on that. But it is probably the biggest question I have about this roster is how that's going to work. We've heard a lot from Fred, a lot from Kenny on team culture, team chemistry, being boys, making sure that if there's any issues, you resolve them quickly, and those are all good things to do. How is Dashy going to take that perspective? We'll see. Obviously, they can be friends outside of the game, which I believe they still are, and I'm sure they will continue to be, especially with the dynamic that Kenny is trying to set with this roster where they're boys inside and outside of the game. So I think that this is going to work more likely than not, but if it doesn't work, that's the piece that I imagine might break down first in terms of relationships within the roster, and then who knows what's going to happen from there. So where do you guys expect this team to rank on a kind of theoretical basis? I do believe that if the last couple of years, the rosters that have been formed by OpTic, this is probably the most promising that I've seen in a long time, actually. Looking at a lot of the rosters, even the OpTic Chicago team, you look back at that team, Scump, Envoy, Dashy, Formal, there was a, looking back on that, maybe it's easy in hindsight, but looking back, there's plenty of issues that you could see from even the SMG and the AR side, what Formal went on to do afterwards, and they were still all right, but, FaZe dominated that year, because I think that every other team was kind of bad that season, to be honest, and I think that's one of the reasons why FaZe dominated. This year, it's a different story. A lot of these top teams, I think, are finally putting together really good rosters, and yes, every team has some element of risk and some element where it might not work, but on the balance of probabilities, there's going to be some really good teams this year, and the competition is going to be pretty mega, and I believe that OpTic is certainly going to be up there as part of it. So very much enjoyed to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.